So I have a very special guest with me today. If you guys don't know, I have been dying to talk about the Garbage Pail Kids on the podcast. And for the very first time, I have the owner of GPK.com, who I reference daily going through my Garbage Pail Kid stuff to kind of look up stuff. We're going to get into the site itself, but I want to welcome Matt here to the channel.
Hello. How's it going? Thanks so much for having me, man.
No, anytime. People out there don't know. I've been trying to get Matt on for like 3 months. His schedule has been really hectic. So I'm finally happy to have him on and have a little time to talk about one of my favorite subjects. So I think we should start at the beginning, all right? How did you first discover? Do you remember how did you first discover Garbage Pail Kids?
Yeah, I totally do. Or at least I say I do. And maybe I've told myself the same story over and over so many times that now I believe it is fact, but I'm pretty sure this is the way it happened. I was in my neighborhood over at my friend Corey's house, and somebody rode up and they had just a handful of cards. One of them was Dead Ted. And I remember from then on, I was 10. And from then on, I was hooked, just like everyone was in our school. I mean, it was like a legit addiction. Where can I get them? How many can I get? It was pretty crazy. So I totally remember exactly where and when I saw my first one.
So that's wild, because I try to go back and like think about where did I first see these things, and I can't picture that exact moment, but I do remember like seeing them in school, 100%, and then asking where the hell did you guys get these things? And I was enamored because of you know, the mocking nature of the cards. Right? I didn't know that they mocked the Garbage Pail Kids, mocked Cabbage Patch Kids back then. I just knew they were eerily similar, but that mocking all these people and like grotesque and whatever, that was right up my alley. And this is 1985, so I was 8 years old at the time. So
Sure.
one of my fondest memories, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good point, because to be honest, I don't think I ever really got the Cabbage Patch thing either. I had a Cabbage Patch Kid doll, so I love those too. I loved them because they were each like these little characters, and I loved, my other favorite one was like Muscle Men or Battle Beasts were probably my favorite like figure to hunt down. And they were just these unique little characters, and on these cards, I just felt like they were, you got 50 little characters that you could shuffle through and trade. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure later on I gathered that they were spoofing the dolls, but that wasn't that important to me.
Yeah, it was more like that humorous nature. So what do you think it was? Was it the artwork? Was it the humor? Was it the gross out factor? Or maybe like a combination of all of it?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of everything. The gross out stuff, sure. I didn't find them particularly gross. I know they were officially banned in my school. I did get a stack of them taken away by my third grade teacher, Mr. Gemeinhart, if you're somehow watching this. So, I mean, all those things happened, but I didn't feel that wasn't why I like loved them. I just loved them. I loved other trading cards too. I collected basically everything. So it wasn't rare to get, interested or addicted to something like that. The fact that they were gross and kind of cool looking didn't hurt, but
So to me, the best thing, and I think one of the major things that attracted me to the cards is that they had that A and B card. So like if you found an A card in a pack, you wanted to find that B card because you didn't know what the names were. I mean, I guess you did. If you had got a checklist, you would
sure.
look on the back and find out what the B or A card was going to be, but you wanted to see it. You wanted to match them up. You wanted to have everything in the set. So that was a big like thing for me collecting them as a kid. But as I remember, like I used to like when I first found out about these things, it was like probably midway through the first series was released. I always remember asking my dad all the time, you got to take me to the store. I don't know who has these things. I remember calling around to like local, like news. I would call them newspaper stores or like 5 and 10 stores. I don't know if you know what that is,
Awesome.
and ask if they had these packs in stock. And some of them would say, yeah, but I would have to wait for my dad to get home for me to take me. Is that the kind of same experience you had as well?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember they were hard to find. There was always like that one or two kids at school who would like come in with a brick and you're like, what the hell? Like, so I was super jealous of them. My house, I grew up down in Aurora, Colorado, and it was just like a half mile down the hill to like a 7-Eleven, back when 7-Elevens were great. And so it was also the 80's, so you could kind of go wherever you wanted. So yeah, I mean, we were 10 and we would ride our bikes down and we would walk and, try to find them. There'd be that whole candy row down the aisle and there would be the very bottom of the candy. They just have a couple boxes and take a pack out of there and flop a quarter down on the counter and make it barely out the door before you start cracking it open. And
You,
but
you just, you was gonna say, you just mentioned one of the biggest things about garbage pail kids, which I love, is that they were so cheap. A
mhm,
quarter was getting you a pack. A whole box cost $5. Like I remember at one point, I didn't do this often because we didn't have all that kind of money, but
right.
getting $5 and be able to go in and say, "Hey, do you have a box of these? I'll take the whole box," and then ripping through all of them.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. And it was a similar situation for me in terms of money. There were so many times when you'd go in like the 7-Eleven or we had like a Skaggs, which is kind of a weird store name. It's basically like an Osco drug or just a drugstore, and they'd have a couple packs, and I would just beg and and mope and complain if I didn't get them. But it's funny to try to think of now, like your kids wanting something for a quarter and having to like, no, so different time for sure. And the quarter is a pretty awesome price point.
It is. I mean, I my kids today, like I try to get them in when they were like the oldest was like 9 and the younger one was like 5, and like just showing them like, oh, what the hell is this? They thought it was pretty comical. They didn't really get into it, but they thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I've my wife and I have three kids, 24, 22, and 18. Um, 24, 21, and 18. None of them got into it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's not that I really tried to push it on them, but they're surrounded by it enough. I mean, this is my stupid office at home, and they would come in and leave. They never really got the itch. So
Do you remember like back then, at least back then when you were a kid, did you have a favorite card that you absolutely loved? You mentioned Dead Ted earlier, but
yeah, yeah, I did love a lot of them. I don't know at what point it happened, but Joe Blow, he's like the first card of Series 3, at some point became my favorite card, and it has been ever since. Um, I think Series 3 is when I really bought a lot of packs. It's when I first was able to start getting them. Series 2 was pretty hard to get. Series 1 was impossible when I started. So I don't know if it was a mix of kind of when I started buying or just how simple and symmetrical the character is. I just love it. So that's my favorite that I always say is my favorite now. So
to me, like original series one to this day is, and maybe it's because that's when I really got into it, is I saw my friends have series one. Ashcan Andy was one that I remember really vividly, just loving the blue backgrounds. It was a Star Wars play, that
yeah,
card as well. So it was like, oh, they got this right. And that was one of the things the Garbage Pail Kids, like it was always a play on something, whether it was Cabbage Patch Kids, Star Wars. Some of the names also were kind of absolutely fantastic, like a Messy Tessie, or
yeah,
another one of my favorites, Greta Garbage.
yeah, yeah. I remember those cards for sure, and their names were great. My name is Matt, so there were a few named Matt when I was growing up, but they were always they were just dumb. I mean, Fat Matt. I didn't really want to collect that. I heard that plenty of times before, so I never really had the awesome like name card like some of the kids did. But yeah, there were a bunch of fun ones for sure.
So that was one of my questions I was going to ask you later on, was like, there was a lot of mats. It was
Yeah.
the one that you were going to be like taken to. So you said that. The one I eerily remember is Matt Rat, the one that was sideways. It was a yellow card.
Yes.
It was a rat.
That there are honestly, now that there's been so many new releases, I can think of like zero mat. I've never really found a mat that I absolutely love and collect. Mat Rat, I think, is an awesome card, but as a kid, it started and it's definitely progressed. I have this snobby dislike of the horizontal cards. I don't like
Yeah.
them. I didn't like them as a kid. They didn't fit with shuffling through the cards. They didn't fit in the binders. So when Mat Rat came out, I was like, oh, perfect. Like a cool card that I don't want. And
I,
so,
I think a lot of kids, I felt the same way. I was like, why are they doing this diagonal?
yeah.
Sideways. It made no sense. But I think a lot of kids at that time, and even now as an adult, they look back at it, because I keep them in binders as well. It's like, oh, you're trying to reminisce, you're looking through stuff, then you have to turn everything sideways just to look at the card.
Yep. Yep. It's a pain and I don't like it. even doing my website because then I have the images. And so yeah, I just don't like the horizontal cards. So
So you mentioned Series 3 is really where you started buying them. Is that your favorite series?
no, Series 2 is my favorite. Um, I think it's combined with I never bought a pack of Series 2. Series 2 was the first I bought. But I traded a lot of Series 2. Um, I like coveted those cards. I would just like look over my friends' shoulders when they're going through their stacks, and I would do whatever I could. I think I only had, a handful at a time when I was a kid, but those are my favorite. And to this day, I think it's the best mix of like artwork and cool characters and cool names. And um,
I agree with you. Messy Tessie is one of my favorites. It's one of like outside of Atom Bomb and Nasty Nick, that was one of like really represented the Garbage Pail Kids well. Was that Messy Tessie,
yeah,
Linky Lindsay character? So I agree with you. I think Series 2 has the best characters. I don't remember Sumo Sid. Was that Series 2 or Series 3?
that's
I think
Series
he was.
2, and it was like the
It
end of
is.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's why I always get confused because it was at the end of it. So like I
yeah.
never remember. But that's another one of my favorites from Series 2. But like obviously you say Series 2 is your favorite, but where do you think it peaked? Like it went 1 through 15. We were gonna get a 16th. That never happened. They ended up re-releasing it later. But where do you think it like kind of topped out?
Well, I know when I go through like the random most of my collection from my original collection from when I was a kid is gone. I still have some of my original cards. And then I have like a box in the basement that's like original wrappers. For some reason, that made it through all the moves. And I know that like I'll have like a couple Series 3, a couple Series 4, blah, blah, blah. And then I have a stack of like 8 and 9. So I think that's when I bought just a ridiculous amount of cards. I was probably a little older, had a little more money to spend. Um, so I think I bought a ton in 8 and 9. And that's where I peaked. And I think that's where Tops peaked too, because then Series 10 came, the lawsuits came, and just the high that it was on that is impossible to keep going finally started to come down. So
So you mentioned the lawsuit, and people who don't know, maybe don't know the history of Garbage Pail Kids. We're going to get into the website because that is a ton of information on it, especially about the history. But do you think with like the lawsuit and of course the change of the trade dress and the change of the characters look themselves a little bit, do you think that helped the decline or basically started the decline, I should say?
yeah, it's weird because looking at the cards now, I don't like the changed art, the updated art style that they went with. I don't know if that would have really mattered as a kid. I honestly think it was just time for it to burn out. Like it was just so insanely popular. And they were printing those series, 3, 4 a year, which is
Yeah.
crazy. Um, so I think it just needed to be done. I think the art style definitely didn't help. I don't think like kids in elementary school though were like complaining about a straight banner versus a curved banner, even though now those same people in their late 40s are hating on the straight banner. But um, I don't think the lawsuit necessarily was the death knell that it could be painted to be. So.
If your teacher says you're bad and sends you to the principal, you can be a garbage pail kid.
So you mentioned artwork, and that to me is one of the favorite things about the Garbage Pail Kids. I don't know if you ever had a chance to check out like some of the heritage auctions, stuff like that. They have like the original artwork, and I really want one. I'm not gonna lie to you. They have a couple that are gonna be coming up for sale in a little bit. A couple sold for a crazy amount of money, I think a couple of months back. But there's like 3 or 4 that are coming up that I'm like, oh wow, these are really, really great. Do you have a favorite artist?
I mean, growing up or looking at the cards from when I grew up, John Pound is my favorite and will always be just because he created what was so important to me now. I do own a few pieces of final artwork, but they're from all new series or even up to just a couple of years ago. I bought one that was like a tweak on Joe Blow. So I really like that. So I picked it up. But yeah, final artwork is, I mean, it is like legit artwork prices. I mean, they are pieces of art now and they're historical and nostalgic and they go for just stupid amounts of money. So I won't
Yeah.
ever get one of the original series ones. but I'm glad I have just a couple
Yeah.
of ones that were from artists that I enjoy and pieces that I liked. So
I agree with you. I think John Pound is also my favorite just because of starting the series and the iconicness of the look. But I do like Tom Bunks as well. Some of his artwork I think is fantastic as well. But for the people out there who don't know, I found you on Instagram. I'm a big proponent of Instagram. Can you
yeah,
tell everyone out there what your Instagram name is? So if they want to follow you, they can.
yeah. So let me actually pull it up and make sure I get it right. Okay, so it is it's all lowercase. I don't know if that matters. GEEPEEKAY_com. So it's just GPK com. And yeah, I joined that what feels like 100 years ago. And through all the social media changes, it's still my favorite one, I think. I'm kind of annoyed with how it actually works at its core, but the experience of it and the interface I really like. So
If your teacher says you're bad and sends you to the principal, you can be a garbage pail kid.
So I've been following you on Instagram for a while. That's how I found you. And I've noticed that you have an incredible collection of stuff, all Garbage Pail Kid stuff. How big is your collection now and what does it actually consist of?
well, honestly enough, I will say that it is not or it hasn't grown much in the last 10 years. So it got to a point and now it's maybe plateaued a little bit. Um, but it's pretty big. It's kind of stupidly big, to the point where now I'm wondering why I have some of the stuff I do. But I have all the cards up to a point. Once they started releasing some of these newer series that didn't really interest me, I stopped buying the cards. Um, but one thing I'm a sucker for, and that I was always a sucker for, is merchandise. So, like this cabinet right here, this is all like merchandise from the 80's. Imperial Toy Company would release stuff. Um, I love that stuff. I think it's great. And then all these new companies that come in with these clever ideas. I have a real weakness for Garbage Pail Kids merchandise. So that is where I tend to buy stuff now. If I do buy stuff, it's usually merchandise. So yeah, it's too big. It needs to be thinned out a little bit.
I,
But
I, I was gonna say, as collectors, I mean, I collect a lot of stuff. I'm sure you could see in this room, but
yeah,
like, I get what you mean. Sometimes you just got to pare stuff off a little bit to keep the things like you really, really love. But to speak on some of the like rarer stuff you have, because I've seen some of the stuff that you've posted. I'm like, oh man, I didn't even know that they made that. I agree. Like sometimes you find like these obscure little items that you didn't know were made in the 80's relating to the Garbage Pail Kid. So like, what have I seen before? Obviously, when I was a kid, like the folders we all knew about, I never found them in stores. I could never get them, but I always wanted to
right.
own the
Yeah.
folders because going to school, I wanted to have it. I wanted to have that. I could never find it. So as an adult, they have them all over the place. You can go to eBay and find a ton of them now. But like, do you have one of like obscure piece that you really, really love? It's like, wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, interestingly enough, uh, like the Imperial toy stuff is my favorite. Um, and there are only like I feel like there's just like 10 guys. I know a lot of them. They're all really great guys, and they're doing the same thing. They like want to hunt down the Imperial toy stuff. So if something rare pops up, you know you're going to kind of get in a battle with this guy or that guy. But one of my favorite things I have is the catalog that they had in '86 for the Imperial toys. It's just like a 2-page little flyer, but I have that. It's the only one that's ever showed up. There were scans of it for years and years on all the early Garbage Pail Kid websites. You could find like a couple scans of the toys they released or the catalog, and then one day it just popped up, and a friend of mine helped me get it in my collection, and so that's probably my favorite. I like that it's a one of one, but I really just like that it represents like my favorite part of the collection.
So I got to ask, and you may not even want to answer this question, but where do you go looking for stuff like this? Because maybe you don't want other people to know, like, where you find it. Because I'd be interested in looking for that stuff.
Yeah, I don't hunt stuff down as much at all anymore, to be completely honest. There was a time where I had like a folder on my browser that was eBay in every country with saved searches for what it was called in
Wow.
that country, a bunch of weird like store links, Mercados, all those that would trigger alerts. I would sit at work and scour like Craigslist in weird cities. It was stupid, and very rarely did it ever result in anything. But when it did, it was kind of cool. But now I just am. I'm not too busy. I just put my time elsewhere to do that. So
Do you still own the original cards, like the set? Do you have 1 through 15, or did you let them go?
yeah, I have like a bookshelf over here with binders. I have my original. It's basically 1 through 9. I have mine. I kind of beefed them up and kind of tweaked them here and there over the years. And then I bought 11 through 15 because I didn't have those as a kid. And then I bought all the all new series, which came out in the early 2000s. I loved those. That's kind of what got me really back into it. And some of the other releases they've done. But yeah, so I have some binders full, or a lot of binders full, that I like to flip through. They're still, I love them. Those original cards are, I mean, all this other stuff aside, the cards are my favorite thing to do, to look through. So
It's funny because when I was a kid, obviously I had the cards. I had a ton of them, but like obviously as kids, we handle them, we trade them, we look at them, we round out the corners, we even peel the stickers off, put them on walls, on our books, on whatever. So like all my cards are basically like, if we're talking about grading wise, they're like a 1s or 2s because I love them so much that I handle them a lot. So I think there's a big misconception out there from a lot of people, especially who talk to me, who always contact me about price and grading and stuff like that. And we're not going to talk about price today, but have you ever graded any of your garbage pail kids?
no, and that's kind of a struggle for me because, well, I mean, and just to follow up on what you said, my old ones that I have from my collection, yeah, I mean, there's some check boxes, like the corners are all mangled. Um, yeah, so I couldn't grade those if I wanted them, but I haven't really gotten into the grading. At first, I didn't get into it because I was confused by it, and I got to send them this. That seems like a hassle I didn't want to deal with. Now I feel like it's kind of gotten out of hand. I do love the idea of the airtight sealed card. I love that. So I actually bought some PSA type cases online, and I'll put some of my favorite cards in there, and I make my own labels in Photoshop, and that works for me because they're protected, and I think they look kind of cool. So that's all I need. I don't need the PSA because ultimately that's just for reselling, I feel like. So
You're 100% right. And I got to ask you at some point, maybe after this podcast is over, I want you to maybe send me a picture of that because I would love that. And I think a lot of collectors who collect GPK would
sure.
love to do the same thing. So like, just show them what it looks like so they can like put it up there and be like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Because I think a lot of collectors out there would like to protect their cards, but also display them. You obviously
Yep.
have a nice display. I try to do the same thing here in my, room that I got going on. So I do think that would be
Looks pretty
great.
nice.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. The one thing I wanted to mention before, which I forgot, was we were talking about your name, Matt, and like how there were a bunch of cards that you could choose from, oh, so and so Matt, whatever. I never got a garbage pail kid with my name on it. They never made a Lawrence card ever. There was a couple of Larrys and stuff like that, which that's
Yeah,
not my name. I don't go by Larry. So as an adult, I had to create my own garbage pail kid. So obviously people who know me as Mighty Comics and Collectibles. So I did mine on, the stock take of Adam Bomb that says mind blown mighty. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I had to do it.
that's awesome. Yeah, I love that shirt. That's great.
Thank you, man. I
I,
appreciate that. I think a lot of
yeah,
people would
I've
probably do
seen
the same thing if they could.
yeah, I've seen some people put those together, and I'm always super jealous because they look great, and I love that they're like super personal. Yeah, I've never created one like that for myself, but maybe it'll be uh, a gift down the line. So
Definitely, man. It's definitely a treat. So the one thing you mentioned before that I wanted to touch on was the modern cards,
mhm.
because a lot of people who collect vintage haven't really necessarily gone over to the modern stuff. You had mentioned the all new series before. Uh, I think you said that was your favorite. What other modern cards have you been into related to Garbage Pail Kids?
Um, what other modern like series of
Like the
GPK
series,
or
yeah,
like
series.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you looked at it on like a yearly chart, my interest level would kind of go down every year. Like all new series was great. It was 2003. I'm suck at doing dates live, but I think it was 2003 to 7 or something. And it was just a fun little rebirth of GPK. They had been, gone since the early 90s. And it was new artists, new ideas, fun little concepts, easily collectible sets. They weren't massive. The concept of like parallels hadn't really been introduced or exploited like it is now. So those 7 series were great, and I loved those. There were some awesome artists that I met and that I still keep in touch with today from there, and also the artists that are doing it now started back then too. So it was just a neat couple series. And then they did like flashback and brand new series. Those were fun, new concepts, new artwork. I kind of lose interest with the themed sets. I just don't. I don't know. It's just not as exciting to me to collect like a Madonna Garbage Pail Kid, because I
Yeah.
actually liked that they were just little kids. Like, and imagine trying to find your name in a series now. It's just like, it's just weird. Yeah.
I agree with you, because what made the original Garbage Pail Kids very, very unique was everyone had their own personalities, and then basing their personality on like an actual person. That's what made it great, because they were so, what's that word I want to use? They were so unique, I guess is the best word, that each individual one had its own thing, like because of
Yeah.
the name and because of the way they look. When you start naming it after like real people, it becomes like, well, you're taking that part of it away, which kind of reduces, in my opinion, the interest.
Yeah. Yeah. And I keep like I kept like a find your name section on my site. And it just got to the point where I decided to just stop with like the 30th release 10 years ago. Because the names, like, say your name is Walter, like the excitement of like finding your name and finding the card, and then it's just a drawing of Walter White. Like it's not fun for you, because you can't, you have like no attachment to that card. It's just a Breaking Bad card, which is great. But so the whole name thing just kind of got out of whack. And I'm admittedly not a horror fan. I'm a total wimp. So I don't like scary movies, but I'm in the minority. So like 80% of the releases that Topps does now are just horror themed. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know what movie they're parodying. So yeah.
That was literally going to be my next question to you about all the new stuff that Topps is putting out relating to Garbage Pail Kids, because there's so much different than what we were used to growing up, and even then later on with the new series when it came back in the early 2000s. So like, I'm assuming that like Topps hasn't contacted you to kind of collaborate anything, because that would have been my first call, was to call you.
No, over the years, I mean, it's almost 20 years that I've been doing things. I've been contacted by a couple of people there. One of them was a cease and desist, which is kind of cool. I was making a couple of stickers that looked a little too close to what they didn't want me to have them look like, I guess. And then I've gotten hit up a couple times. Somebody will be new to the job and reach out to want to talk, and I think that's great. And then it never goes anywhere. So I kind of gave up building a relationship with them. I feel like there should be, and I've wanted there to be, but at this point, I know a handful of the artists, and I enjoy talking to them and appreciate them being open to discussion. But once it gets up one level to Topps,
Yeah.
I kind
I
of got a
get it.
chip on my shoulder, and I don't really care what.
I was just actually at New York Comic Con this past week, and I was
Yeah.
hoping that Topps is going to have a GPK kind of portion of their booth, because maybe about 2 years ago when I went there, they had an incredible booth. Not only did they have like, the regular top stuff with sports and Disney and whatever else they had, but they had original whatever series they were, Garbage Pail Kids, on a wall. And I'll never forget this, because my son was with me, was younger at the time, and they had like, take a card, leave a card. So if you had a Garbage Pail Kid card, you could put it on the card on the wall, and you could take one off and take it home if you wanted to trade. I thought that was such a great idea. And I was spending like a half hour talking to one of the Topps guys, and he was saying how much people are really getting back into, Garbage Pail Kid hobby, how great it was for them, that if people had, obviously, if they had higher grade cards, to try to get them to submit to for grading, stuff like that. So like I'm really shocked to see that they haven't really marketed the new series of cards correctly. And in fact, you can't even get them to mention it. Like they'll just drop them with no notice.
Yeah, yeah. I saw your pics from New York and it looked like a blast. But I've been frustrated this whole year because it's 40-year anniversary, which
Mhm.
is crazy. I don't know. I don't. I feel old physically, but mentally I'm still like 10 or 15. So it doesn't compute to me that it's been 40 years with these cards. But on the same hand, Topps has not done anything to like remind me that it's been 40 years. I thought this year would be just amazing, like some fun releases, all year kind of little reminders, fun things. They've done nothing. I mean, zero presence at any conventions. They did a 40th anniversary set, which I I don't know, was kind of a dud for me. People loved it because they just threw a bunch of hits in every pack and every box, and everyone just goes nuts over that. But
That's unfortunately that's the new way of card thing. I'm a big comic guy as well, and they're starting to do that where there's like one of whatever, one of one of 100, one out of 500, whatever it is. Like that's like the new thing for cards. There's no sucks.
yeah, it's crazy. And GPK did a comic book or a handful of comic books last year. I think they started, and so I was like, oh, cool. I collected comics as a kid. I bought issue number 1. And then I just gave up because issue number 1, and that's the only one I collected. There's 38 variant covers. So I got all 38 of those and then decided I'm not going to do anything else because I don't know. I'm a completist,
Yeah.
completionist. So it's hard for me to have 7 and not 14. So I can't do that. And with the cards, it's not obviously just with Garbage Pail Kids. I mean, I see these baseball collectors posting their rainbows and it's like 88 cards or something. I'm like, good job, but yeah, I can't do that.
All right, so I'm going to ask you one question more before we get into the website, because I really want to talk about that because it's fantastic. What does the spouse think of the whole GPK obsession thing?
Yeah, she's super patient, she's super supportive. I think actually I'm pretty, I don't know if shy is the right word, but I don't openly talk about this, when we hang out with friends or anything. I kind of keep it to myself. I think she thinks I should maybe be a little more outgoing with it. But she's great with it. I mean, obviously, our front door and our like hallway to our house is right there. And she kind of approves of this. So
I was going to say she allows it.
yeah, she's pretty great. I hate using that term, like she gives me permission, whatever, because that's not how our relationship goes. But she is very, very cool with it. So
Yeah, my wife mocks me for owning a Garbage Pail Kid of myself. So that's awesome.
If your teacher says you're bad and sends you to the principal, you can be a garbage pail kid.
So let's talk about the website, because like I said before, if you're a Garbage Pail Kids fan and you haven't checked this out, I literally think it's a one-stop shop for Garbage Pail Kids. There's so much information on there. When did you launch gpk.com? I don't want to spell it for everybody out there. GEEPEEKAY.com. When did you launch it, and what did it look like in the beginning?
so it was back in 2006 that I put the first couple pages and created like a banner for it. I did it all in Microsoft Front Page, which is some archaic software. There's some HTML coding software, but I created that. I was big in a forum back in the day because forums were kind of cool before social media. But I had like a username on there. So I used that in my site. And so for the first year or two, it was Nicodemus and his Garbage Pail Kids collection. That's what the banner said. But it was just kind of a fun thing to put together. I honestly had no clue it would turn into 20 years.
So what made you want to put together a site? I guess that's a better question.
Yeah. So at the time, there were a couple sites that you could find that collectors have put together that had just a few things on there, a few pages, and I would just stare at them all day. I thought they were so cool. There was stuff I hadn't seen in decades, but they weren't updated much anymore. There was one that was updated, but so stuff was hard to find. That was one thing. And then I had some stuff that I liked, and so I just wanted to create like a virtual collection basically that I could share with people. So I would just take pictures of the stuff I had, write up some information about it, and put it on there. So it just started originally as just kind of like my room, on the internet, just a couple of things that I had. And then right around that same time, there just became this desire to create like a card gallery, because there was a couple of those from the earlier series, but there was nothing like that for the newer stuff that was coming out. So I would scan in the cards, crop them, put them up there, and that really got to be pretty popular. People liked seeing the card galleries, so that's where it kind of took off.
For me, like just going back and remembering what the numbers for each card was, which card was in each series, because I still forget to this day. Like we talked about, Sumo said earlier, it was at the end of series 2, so it makes me think like, oh, he might be almost the beginning of series 3. So that was a huge help for me. But would you think that was the hardest part? Maybe scanning in all the cards. Like, what was the hardest part about putting this thing together?
Yeah, I mean, those galleries were pretty intense to put together with scanning and just cropping them all. I've kind of cheated on the last few because the sets are huge now too. I mean, but so like I'll take advantage of some people that scan everything for eBay, and I'll just borrow an image or two. So yeah, doing that took a ton of time over the years. Some of the other sections, just the information or the putting together all the details takes a lot of time. I don't think people really get it. And this is not building up what I do in any way. I'm just saying how I do it. It takes a ton of time to track down all the dates and the numbers and the variations and getting pictures of everything. So yeah, it just takes a little bit of time. So
it's extremely helpful. So if anybody's listening to this, whether you're on Spotify, whether on Apple Podcasts, whether on YouTube, Podbean, wherever you are, you're a Garbage Pail Kids fan, you have to check out gpk.com, because not only does he have all the cards listed chronologically for all the series, especially the original series, but he has all the recurrent series after that. It's amazing. Not only that, he has the history of the Garbage Pail Kids. You can go actually, and if you don't know, remember everything, how they came out, the lawsuit, what happened after that, the re-releases, all that stuff is put into this one site. He also has a crazy find your name site, which I always wanted to check just in case I missed anything. Wait, maybe they did put out a Lawrence, but they never did, where you could put your name in, search for your name, and then look to see what cards were released under your name, which I found absolutely fantastic. That must have taken you forever.
yeah, and there should be an asterisk on everything I say, because everything does take me a long time. But like starting back with the original site and to now, I've taught myself this. I've used it as kind of an excuse to learn something new. So I've taught myself how to code. I've taught myself Photoshop. So my coding probably leaves a little bit to be desired. It involves a lot of like when I'm typing it, I'll type here and then I look over there and it didn't work. And so I get it to work, but it takes me a considerable amount of time just because I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. So
that's amazing that you're able to teach. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I do the same thing. Like in order for me to put out a video, I had to teach myself how to do Final Cut Pro. I teach myself how to use, all these other programs, like to do thumbnails, to do whatever. The site is also very, very polished. If anybody goes to an actual website, your website is like very eye appealing. And that I don't think it's just because it's GPK is one of those things that it's bright, it's beautiful, but the site itself is beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. Over the years, there's been a few variations of it. To be honest, I feel like it needs one more rebuild with some of the newer technology, but yeah, I like taking the time to make it look nice too, but that works for me personally. So it's nice that it works for everyone else too. But I was always creative, or I enjoyed creative hobbies as a kid, and then I got to be an adult, and I have it's like the world's worst boring job. I'm like an engineer at a telecommunications company, so it doesn't afford me the opportunity to be very creative. So that's why I like this. It's a nice aside to learn some new things, worry about how things look. So it's nice.
We have that in common because I have an incredibly boring job in the healthcare space. So like same thing here. Like I like to be creative. I like to talk. I like to talk about things that I enjoy, like
Sure.
the Garbage Pail Kids. So I don't know if you know this, but your website has become the ultimate resource for GPK. Do people reach out to you and ask you questions? Do you get a lot of emails saying like, what about this? Have you ever seen this? You also have error cards on the site as well. So that's always something that I'm still learning about as well.
Yeah, I get a handful of emails. That's actually gone down a little bit. I think people take advantage of groups on Facebook or something for a lot of their questions, which is fine. Um, Odds are they'll find a better answer there most of the time. But yeah, I get a lot of questions. What I like the most is every once in a while or a few times a year, I'll get somebody to reach out to me. It just happened the other week. There's a collector overseas who just has some information and some images on like some of the foreign releases, for example, which is great because I need help with those. I didn't collect the test cards from Belgium in 1985. So if somebody knows that, I love when that happens. I'll give a shout out on my site if somebody gives me some help. So that's great. I love hearing like that kind of stuff. It is the nice release from all the people saying, how much is this worth? And those I kind of just shove to the side.
We were talking a little bit before we started recording how like I get a lot of emails as well because I've put out a lot of Garbage Kill videos on my YouTube channel that get quite good amount of views. So like I want to say to everybody out there who's listening to this, the Garbage Pail Kids, while I have done price videos about most valuable and whatever, and I think that's what a lot of people are going for. Let's not forget the nostalgia about these cards. If you grew up owning them and you love these characters, you love these silly little grotesque, fun little things, that's what it's supposed to be about for especially guys around our age. I'm in my late 40s. Believe it or not, my birthday is this Saturday coming up. So
Oh,
I'm about
nice.
to turn I'm about to turn 48 and I still love these things to death. So let's not forget that, right?
Absolutely. I turned 50 this year, so I got a couple years on you. But yeah, I mean, and that's usually my response when people will send me a message and they're like, oh, look what I just found. What can I get for it? I'll just reply and be like, that's awesome. Like, keep those. Like, they're the best. They're a little time capsule back to the 80s, and you can, use them whenever you need a little break from whatever it is that's going on right now. So they don't
Yeah.
typically like that response. They want the money, but yeah, the nostalgia is where it started for me. It's where I always go to when I'm like struggling with things, and it's what keeps the site going. It's what keeps the hobby going for me. I just love it. I have such vivid memories of the 80s. So
Me too. A couple more questions and I'm gonna let you go, Matt.
sure.
Do you have a favorite part of the site that you actually continue to go back and use? And also, what do you think the user experience like? If I'm a person going to the site for the first time, what part of the site do you think I would really like or really use the most?
Um, yeah. So I don't know if I have a favorite part. Um, some of my favorite sections are like I have a section on like official merchandise, officially licensed merchandise. So there's some pages in there that I've put together, and selfishly from like I got something to work coding wise or image wise that was what I was going for. So I like those pages. Like there's a section on like skateboard wheels that just were released through the last few years. So I have like every wheel, and I feel like that page just looks really nice. The galleries I like, but I tend to look at those like a chore almost, because those are what I'm always like struggling to keep up to date with. So it's every time I look at them, I'm like, oh, there's another one I have to finish. So I like those, but they're almost harder to look at. I'm a huge fan of the movie that came out in 87. So I like that section of the site. It's not super robust, but that's another little selfish hobby I have, or like a thing that I collect. I will buy copies of the movie, so I have like 40
You
various copies of the movie and
you
VHS
might be
tape.
the only Garbage Pail Kids fan that I know that enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, the movie is so creepy. Like, it's the weirdest thing ever. And I actually saw it in the theater. I saw it with my neighbor across the street, Robbie, and we got dropped off at the Cooper 5 on ILIF. I remember everything about this. We got some cards in the lobby. There was maybe like 8 people in the theater. And I remember just sitting down, being super excited, and then just so confused. I hated the movie. I didn't know what was going on, but I kept the cards. I still have those to this day. And yeah, something about it, something about how much they missed the mark with that. I think I'm attracted to. So I like, and plus I just love physical media. So I think I like buying a VHS tape.
It's like I don't know if I'm a big Masters of the Universe fan. It's the same thing with us with that original movie. Now they're coming out with the new Masters of the Universe
Yeah.
movie. So any chance we're ever going to get a Garbage Pail Kids movie, like a new one?
There's been a ton of rumors, and if you Google it online, you'll see names like Danny McBride attached to it. Adam Goldberg, of course, who showed a bunch of love to Garbage Pail Kids in his show. So there's been some rumors. There's been some even recently that it's still alive and kicking. I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever happen, and if it did, I'm not sure it would be very good. But anything related is always good. Any publicity is good publicity, I guess. So.
If your teacher says you're bad and sends you to the principal, you can be a garbage pail kid.
So again, Matt, I want to thank you again for coming on the podcast today. I hope everybody out there who's listening has learned a lot about the Garbage Pail Kids, but I have one more question for you. And that's, what do you think of all the parody cards out there? There's a lot of people out there who are doing their own Garbage Pail Kids-esque type of cards. What do you think of those?
There is a lot. And so I would say, I think it's great. I love seeing people get creative, and some of these people are getting really creative. So I love that. But B, I don't collect it. Personally, I'm not interested in that just because there is that much out there, and I can't, I tried picking and choosing for a while, but it just got to the point where there's so much cool stuff out there, and I couldn't get it all. So I just decided to go for none. So I just go for the official stuff. But yeah, there's some great stuff out there. People get creative and spend a lot of time and money, and I think that's good for the hobby. I think a lot of people find their way back into GPK from the parody sets out there. So yeah, I think that's good. And over the years, I even released some stuff under my website that was kind of like parody cards. So I have to say I like it if I did it. But yeah, so I think it's good, and I don't think we're anywhere near seeing the end of that.
If you'd like to become a sponsor here on the Mighty Rewind podcast, make sure you reach out at the Mighty Rewind podcast at gmail.com.